Hey there, and welcome to this trip report. It's 6:30 a.m. on October 31st, 2021, and I'm cruising through the British countryside, making my way south towards London's Heathrow Airport. Today's trip will be on board Air Canada's Boeing 777-300ER from London over to Toronto, where I'll have a 3-hour connection and then fly onwards to Montreal. With the added restrictions due to COVID-19 causing lots of delays in customs processing, I gave myself lots of time in Toronto to make sure I don't miss my connecting flight. This trip report will cover the first leg of the journey across the Atlantic in Air Canada Economy Class. It's a very rainy day here, but I guess that's to be expected in England in October. Arriving at the Avis rental car center at Heathrow, there's really no dodging the rain as I collect my things from the car and speak with the agent who's inspecting the vehicle. After dropping the car, I headed over to the rental building where a terminal shuttle was loading up customers. After I got on board and settled in, we departed towards the terminals. It was a roughly 10-minute ride until we reached my stop at Heathrow's Terminal 2. Heathrow Airport consists of 4 active terminals numbered 2 through 5, with Terminal 1 no longer in use. Terminal 2 is used by all Star Alliance carriers that serve Heathrow, including Air Canada. Stepping off of the shuttle bus at Heathrow at 8 a.m., I've got about 3 hours before my 11 a.m. flight to get checked in and drop off my luggage, to clear security, and to make my way over to the gate. The rental car shuttle bus drop-off is inside a covered parking garage, from which you can take an elevator up 5 floors to the departures level. So far, the biggest hassle has been waiting for an elevator to take me up to the departures level, which was about 10 minutes as each one that arrived on my level was already full. After reaching level 5 and taking a quick look at the check-in information board, I'm headed over to Zone A to check in for my flight. As I make my way over to the Air Canada check-in area, let's talk a bit about the requirements for travel into Canada at the time of this trip. For fully vaccinated travelers over the age of 5 entering Canada, you're required to have a negative COVID-19 test result taken within 72 hours of the scheduled departure time of your flight to Canada. Accepted test types include PCR, RT-LAMP, or NAT and NAAT tests, while rapid antigen tests are not accepted. Alternatively, you can provide proof of a positive test result taken between 14 and 180 days ago. There is no quarantine required on arrival for fully vaccinated travelers, however, unvaccinated travelers must quarantine for 14 days after arrival in Canada and also complete COVID-19 tests on arrival and on day 8 after arrival. All travelers are also required to download the ArriveCan app on their smartphone and submit their information to have it validated. You can submit your information on ArriveCan anytime in the 72 hours prior to departure, so I completed mine the night before my flight. The information submitted on the app includes vaccination status, pre-entry test results, and contact information and travel details. After submitting everything, you're provided with a receipt and QR code to show the airline agents and Canadian customs agents. After reaching the Air Canada check-in area at Zone A, the first line I joined was to have my documents validated. Here there were 2 agents screening passengers to ensure that their ArriveCan was completed and verifying their COVID-19 test results. After having my documents checked, I was handed a transfer tag for my luggage and then told to proceed to the next available check-in counter. There were tons of available counters and no line to access any of them. At the counter, the agent printed off my baggage tag and attached it to the bag with the transfer sticker. She then whisked it away into the baggage system, handed me my boarding passes for both my flight to Toronto and connecting flight to Montreal, and I was free to head over to security screening. The whole check-in process took less than 10 minutes, which is pretty impressive given the volume of passengers these agents have to process. There are 5 Air Canada flights departing Heathrow in the next 6 hours, so that's easily well over 1,000 passengers coming through this check-in area. Heading over to security, I'll take this time to note that as of the date of this trip report, face masks are generally not required in public spaces in the UK, though they are mandatory in airports at all times, except when eating or drinking. There are hand washing stations located fairly frequently throughout the terminal space as well to encourage good hygiene, though use is not mandated. Upon reaching the security screening area, you first pass by bins for disposal of restricted items and tables to open your carry-on luggage and repack. Next, you proceed to an automatic gate which scans your boarding pass and your face, after you lower your face mask of course. Once you pass the gate, you join the queue for screening, which took less than 10 minutes from entry to exit. Exiting security and taking a look at the departures board, my flight to Toronto, Air Canada Flight 855, departing at 11:10 a.m., has been delayed to 11:35 a.m. The gate information won't be shown until 10:20 a.m., so in the meantime, I'll wander around the terminal, do a bit of shopping, and find some breakfast. The exit to security screening lands you on the upper level of this central area, where there are lots of shops, restaurants, and airline lounges. On the lower level, there are more shops and restaurants, and the boarding gates are located around the perimeter of the building, branching off of this main area. It feels a bit like I'm standing in the middle of a giant shopping mall, which is a feeling I tend to get in most European airports. This terminal building is also fairly new, and it really shows. The new Terminal 2, also known as the Queen's Terminal, opened in 2014, with construction on it beginning 4 years earlier in 2010. This terminal also consists of a satellite building known as Terminal 2B, in addition to this main building known as 2A. In general, I love the high ceilings and the openness of the space. The architecture is very modern, and the terminal has a very clean and consistent appearance from entry to the check-in area through to after security. It's 8:45 a.m. now, and I found myself a seat at the Perfectionists Cafe on the upper level and enjoyed a quick breakfast. After breakfast, I headed down to the lower level to check out some of the duty-free shopping. The sheer number and size of all the stores is overwhelming, and everything looks brand new. There's anything from British staples like Harrods to common luxury brands like Gucci or Burberry. After picking up some classic British treats at World Duty Free, I headed away from the hectic shopping area and found myself a seat in one of the quieter gate areas around the perimeter with some nice windows to watch the action outside. The weather is still looking utterly miserable, but that doesn't seem to be slowing operations here today. At 10:20 a.m., I gathered my things and began the walk to my assigned gate of B38. Gate B38 is one of the gates on the satellite concourse in Building 2B, which is about a 15 to 20 minute walk from here. The walk takes me back through the central area of the main building before heading down to the underground tunnel connecting the main building to the satellite building. It's quite a long way down as the tunnel passes underneath aircraft parking spots and taxiways. The walk through the tunnel can be sped up by riding on the People Mover walkways and is then followed by another long escalator ride back to ground level. Popping up in Terminal 2, Building 2B, this area is very similar to the central area of the main building, with duty-free shopping and restaurants clustered here, and the concourses with boarding gates branching off from it. There are also several airline lounges located in this building, including those for Air Canada, Singapore Airlines, and United Airlines. Much like the main building, this building has a very clean and modern appearance. Along the concourse, the wood finishing on the ceiling is a really nice touch, and the bright lighting really opens up the space and gives it a fresh feel. Gate B38 is midway down this concourse with lots of seating available on both sides of the gate. It's still pretty quiet here with over an hour to go until our revised departure time. Just before 10:30 a.m., the inbound aircraft from Toronto is pulling into the gate, about 2 hours behind schedule, hence the expected delay for our flight back to Toronto. This now 14-year-old Boeing 777-300ER was delivered to Air Canada in July of 2007 and has flown with the airline continuously since, except for a brief storage from July 2020 to September 2021 during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. It also happens to be the exact same aircraft that brought me over to the UK 10 days ago. I found a seat near the windows and settled in while I wait for boarding to begin. You can see passengers streaming into the arrivals corridor on the upper level from the inbound flight as they continue to offload before beginning to prep for our departure. Checking the Air Canada app while I'm sitting at the gate, I can see that my flight is now delayed to a 12 p.m. departure with an estimated arrival in Toronto 30 minutes behind schedule at 3:40 p.m.
Check-in, or you've got online check-in, please come forward.
While waiting, the gate agents were making frequent announcements asking passengers to come up and get their documents verified if they had not seen an Air Canada agent at check-in. This is the case for many customers coming off of other flights arriving at Heathrow and then connecting on Air Canada. Passengers are not permitted to board until their documents for Canadian entry have been checked.
At the moment we're looking at the departure time for 12 o'clock. The aircraft is being catered and clean.
At 11:30 a.m., they commenced boarding for my flight, starting with Zone 1 passengers, which includes those seated in business class or holding Aeroplan Super Elite status. I've been assigned Zone 3 for boarding, which is the first of the regular economy boarding groups. There are 2 different lines for boarding, one for economy passengers and the other for business, premium economy, altitude status, and Star Alliance Gold holders, and those traveling on a latitude fare. After Zone 1 and 2 and pre-boarding for families with children, boarding for my zone is now underway. At the entrance to the boarding queue, there are 2 agents checking documents before passengers join the actual line. There isn't really a well-formed queue here, so it was a bit of a free-for-all. After having my passport and boarding pass checked, I was able to join the line to board the aircraft. At the end of this line, there are automated boarding pass scanners to scan your boarding pass, and then you're free to board. Stepping on board, I'm seated on the right side of the aircraft for this flight, so my seat is accessed using the far aisle. After crossing through the galley, I took a right and headed down through the rear section of the business class cabin. Business class on this aircraft, or signature class as it's called on international flights, consists of 40 lie-flat pod-style seats in a 1-2-1 seating configuration. Next, I pass through the premium economy cabin, which consists of 24 extra reclining seats in a 2-4-2 configuration. And then into the economy class cabin, which consists of 336 seats in a 3-4-3 configuration. I'm seated in seat 38K for this flight, which is the window seat on the right side of the aircraft in row 38. The seats have a slimline design with a fabric surface and leather-covered headrest. At a pitch of 31 inches and a seat width of 17 inches, it's nothing terribly spacious, but at 5'10", I'll fit just fine. Some thoughts on the cabin in general: the big windows flood in tons of natural light, which helps give it a very bright and open feeling. The cabin is also noticeably modern and feels recently refreshed, though I don't believe that's actually the case. It just appears to be aging quite well. The color contrast between the seats and the rest of the cabin is really nice and helps give it that modern feel. The high ceilings also give the cabin interior a very open and spacious appearance. Settling into my seat, we see that each seat is equipped with a seatback entertainment screen, which we'll tour later in the flight. Storage space under the seat is decent, though for my window seat, the leg of the seat in front seems to get in the way a bit. I was able to fit a small backpack with no problem. For the rest of the row, the aisle seat has an electrical box which would obstruct under-seat storage a bit, while the middle seat seems to have the most available storage space. Looking around the seat a bit more, below the entertainment screen on the seat back in front, we have the tray table which folds out for use. The table is mounted on rails such that it can slide outwards towards you. Below the tray table, we have a pocket for holding the provided reading materials and any other items you wish to store there. The provided items include the safety information card for the Boeing 777-300ER, along with a couple air sickness bags. Each economy class seat also has a leather, height-adjustable headrest that has folding sides to provide extra support. Pillows and blankets were provided at the seat when we boarded, even though this is a daytime flight over to Toronto, so I'm not sure I'm actually going to be using them. In terms of connectivity at the seat, in addition to the USB charging port located on the bottom edge of the entertainment screen, there are AC power outlets located under the seat. The outlets are located in between the seats, so for my row of 3, there are 2 outlets. The overhead bins on this aircraft are huge, so storage space doesn't tend to be an issue. This flight isn't super full either, so there definitely won't be an issue today.
Very shortly. Hope you join flight with us to Toronto today. As a reminder,
It's 12 p.m. now, and all passengers are now on board as we're getting ready to push back from the gate. I also managed to score an empty middle seat next to me, so I'm pretty happy about that.
in your seat, do not try and move your seat. Retrieve it yourself, as it does pose a fire hazard. Notify your cabin crew immediately to ensure a safe retrieval.
Still sitting at the gate, and the safety information video is now underway.
Cabin crew, prepare for departure and cross-check, thank you.
You can also play by rolling the light back should only be ignited at the moment your seat must go to check your sword position. Stewardess are ensuring safe.
The engines are running, the flaps are extended, and we're taxiing to the runway for takeoff. We'll be departing from runway 27 left today, which is the southern runway at Heathrow Airport. This departure will send us out to the west side of the airport and directly on track for our Atlantic crossing. Lining up on runway 27 left at 12:22 p.m. and ready to power away for Canada. Climbing away from Heathrow, the weather has definitely improved from earlier this morning. Expected flight time over to Toronto is just under 7 hours. As I mentioned earlier, the windows on this aircraft are huge, which lets in tons of natural light, and they're equipped with standard pull-down window shades for blocking out light. About 10 minutes after takeoff, the cabin crew distributed complimentary earbuds for the entertainment system, along with Clean Care Plus kits. Air Canada distributes these kits to all passengers on all of their flights as a part of their commitment to passenger safety during the pandemic. The kits you receive on domestic and international flights are marked differently, but as I discovered on my flight to the UK last week, the contents doesn't actually differ that much. Taking a look at what's provided in this international kit, we have a bottle of hand sanitizer, some individual packets of disinfecting hand wipes, and a multi-layer face mask. Now, let's take a closer look at the in-flight entertainment system. The seatback screen is a decent size at 8.9 inches, and the graphics quality is really good. The on-demand content loaded on the system includes movies, TV shows, music, audiobooks, and podcasts with a good range of content available under each submenu. Each type of content is grouped into different sections by genre, recommendations, or other themes. You can also view the food service menu for today's flight and the beverages available as well. There's also a games section and a dedicated kids content section with movies, TV shows, games, and music targeted to kids. You can also view sections with information on Air Canada's fleet, their partner organizations, and their frequent flyer program, Aeroplan. Moving on to the in-flight maps next, you can choose to view the maps in either picture-in-picture mode or in full screen mode. The graphics detail of the maps is really good, and there are tons of different viewing options and flight information available. The bottom bar on the screen shows the progress in today's flight, including our departure time and estimated arrival time. Below the progress bar, on the lower edge of the screen, we have a headphone port for connecting to the system audio and a USB 3.0 port for charging your device. In the settings menu for the system, you can control the display brightness and system volume, and also turn off the screen or put the graphics into night mode. On the top right corner of the screen are controls for the overhead reading light and attendant call button. The reading light is located on the overhead panel along with personal adjustable air conditioning vents. Cruising along at 34,000 feet, the first meal service of the flight is now underway, which I guess lines up with lunch on UK time. While the menu on the entertainment system says that the options are ratatouille chicken or pasta in tomato and olive sauce, the chicken was actually in a mustard sauce, but that was my choice either way. The meal tray was served with a bread roll and butter. Now, I ranted a bit about the Air Canada bread rolls in my review of the flight from Toronto to London, so I won't go into detail on that here, but in short, this one is ice cold and a rock as per usual. A cucumber and dill salad was provided as an appetizer and a pot of orange chocolate ganache for dessert. A water bottle was given with the tray, and shortly after the meal was delivered, another set of cabin crew came through with a full beverage service. A cutlery packet was provided with the tray as well, including salt and pepper, a plastic fork, knife and spoon, and a serviette. I have to say, I was actually really impressed by the quality of this main dish, which was the chicken in mustard sauce served with polenta corn mash and roasted vegetables. The meal on the flight over to London was not very good, so my expectations were pretty low, but this was really tasty, and the orange chocolate ganache for dessert definitely didn't disappoint. With the meal service cleared away, I'm settling in for the 5.5 hours to go and making extra use of that open middle seat next to me. Taking a wander to the back of the aircraft, it's pretty quiet as passengers are either napping or making use of the in-flight entertainment. There are also quite a few empty rows back here, so people have lots of room to stretch out. Back at my seat and working on my laptop again, you can see that there's just enough space in the row to work with a large computer, but not much extra. We're just over halfway there now, with another 3.5 hours to go before arrival in Toronto. As of now, our estimated arrival time is 3:15 p.m., which is earlier than originally expected given our delay leaving London, and only puts us in about 5 minutes behind schedule. The cabin crew distributed water bottles about 4 hours into the flight. We're now just off the coast of eastern Canada, which puts a wrap on our Atlantic crossing for today. Now only another 2.5 hours until we reach southern Ontario. We're getting bounced around a little bit as we make our way across Labrador. With under an hour and a half to go before arrival, the cabin crew are now coming through the cabin with a hot snack item. The options were either a chicken or vegetarian savory pastry. I opted for the tomato and chicken pastry, and it was really delicious. The pastry was served with a small water bottle, and a full beverage cart service was offered in addition. With the snack done, I've got about an hour left to get some work done. "22 minutes until landing, and it's time to pack up.
Ladies and gentlemen, as per the airport authority, there is a passenger hold and metering process in place for flights arriving into Toronto. Customers with a connecting flight are permitted to deplane first. Please have your connecting boarding card ready to show the staff as you leave the aircraft. We ask all other
As we begin our descent towards Toronto's Pearson Airport, the crew announced that the airport authority is currently applying a passenger hold for all arriving flights, including ours. This means that due to a high volume of passengers currently arriving, only connecting passengers like myself will be allowed to deplane on arrival so that they can make their connections, while all other passengers will need to remain on the plane until permitted to leave. After touching down on runway 24 left at 3:20 p.m., we're now taxiing over to our gate at Terminal 1.
Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened and your checked baggage stowed until the seatbelt sign has been turned off. Smoking is not permitted.
As we arrived at the gate, the crew announced that the passenger hold had been lifted, so all passengers were free to deplane. We parked at gate E78 in the international section of Terminal 1, and the next stop for me is Canadian Customs and then on to Terminal 1 domestic departures to catch my connecting flight. When flying with Air Canada and arriving from an international destination in Toronto and then connecting on to a domestic destination, you do not need to collect and recheck your luggage. When I checked my bag in London, the destination on the baggage tag was Montreal. For customs, following the signs for the D gates puts all connecting domestic passengers into a separate customs hall from arriving passengers with no onward connection. It was very quiet in the customs hall for the D gates, and it took me no more than 3 minutes from entry to exit. After clearing Canadian customs, I'm free to head over to the domestic gates, where my flight to Montreal is departing from gate D22 at 6 p.m. Domestic connecting passengers don't need to re-clear security either, and are simply able to proceed from customs straight to their next gate. It only took me 22 minutes from stepping off the aircraft to being seated at the gate for my next flight, so the 3-hour connection I planned for was a bit overkill. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Now for some comments on the journey overall. I have to say I was really impressed by how easy the whole process was for taking this international trip during the COVID-19 pandemic. I had read horror stories of lengthy lines and delays, but that wasn't the case for this trip, and it was pretty seamless overall. There are, however, a couple things to get used to, like knowing what documents you need in terms of vaccination and testing, and using the ArriveCan app to submit all that info prior to your flight. In terms of the service on board, the meals provided on this flight were actually really good, which is a stark contrast from the food on the flight over to London a week earlier. In terms of bad things, I don't really have much to comment here, which is nice for a change because I feel like I may have been a little harsh on Air Canada in my last review of the flight from Toronto over to London, with most of that negative energy revolving around cold bread rolls. Nonetheless, this was a comfortable and easy flight, and I am looking forward to taking my next international trip sometime soon.